And now all the damage that I could potentially have done by training to failure and way beyond and inducing all this neurological stress and fatigue and perhaps oxidative stress in the brain post-workouts, gone, mitigated, disappeared, resolved, phenomenal. Vigorous Steve here. Let's compare Semax to Selank. It's not exactly an epic steroid battles of history comparison video, more of an analogs or sequences of bioidentical hormones with nootropic properties comparison video. So in this video we're going to compare Semax to Selank. I've been experimenting with both compounds in different administration routes for 4 weeks and discontinued both of them 2 weeks ago because I wanted to see how much of their effects would last. And I initially started using them to see if I could mitigate some of the post-exercise brain fog that I would always experience when I was training to failure or beyond failure or do a little bit too much volume than is good for me, which is now, I'm very happy to say, pretty much completely resolved. I think that's the most prominent takeaway of my experiments with both compounds, the mitigation of the post-exercise brain fog that I would always get in the past, allowing me to train in the morning and still have a productive day for the rest of the day afterwards. Now, I already made a pretty detailed and extensive video about Semax a couple weeks ago. If you haven't watched that already, you can watch it here. We'll lay the foundation of what we're going to discuss in this comparison video. I briefly want to discuss my personal experiences before we go into the quick facts and start comparing Semax and Selank regarding their unique characteristics. But before we get into it, please like the video, leave a comment for the algorithm, and consider subscribing if you haven't already. Just keep in mind, this is not necessarily a channel for nootropics or cognitive improvement, even though I do like to explore compounds which could enhance cognitive improvement with nootropic benefits, but it's mostly in the context of bodybuilding or how people can enhance their fitness aspirations with the use of some of these compounds. So again, all of my reviews of Semax and Selank is in the context of bodybuilding or for fitness purposes, not necessarily as an antidepressant or anti-anxiety or to improve cognition, even though I do notice that cognition is significantly improved after introducing these compounds to my protocol. Now, from my personal experience, both Semax and Selank act as a mild decongestant, which allows me to get a better sensation of oxygenation during the workout. Now, previously I was using an over-the-counter supplement called Peak O2, which contains a blend of 5 or 6 different mushrooms, giving me the sensation of breathing a very fresh breath of air throughout the workout, even though I'm training in a gym without air conditioning, with often very high humidity and a pretty high temperatures. So the Peak O2 was really helping with my exercise performance. And now that I introduced the Semax nasal sprays or the Selank nasal sprays, that puts the Peak O2 to shame. So in the beginning, I was combining Peak O2 with Semax and Selank, but now I've discontinued the Peak O2 because they act as a much more potent decongestant, allowing me to get much better breaths of air in during the workout, increasing my exercise performance. So besides the mitigation of the post-exercise brain fog that both Semax and Selank have, it also allows for better oxygenation. And these decongesting effects seem to linger, even though I've discontinued the Semax and Selank about 2 weeks ago. Now, to be fair, the last week of the experimentation trial, I was using the injectable subcutaneous administrations of Semax and Selank. So I haven't used the nasal sprays for about 3 weeks, maybe even 3.5 weeks up until this point, but the decongesting effects seem to linger, even though they're slowly dissipating. So at one point I will reintroduce the Peak O2 into my pre-workout protocol because I do enjoy that oxygenating effect and getting a fresh breath of air during the workout. Because this climate certainly needs a little bit of a boost to make sure that the exercise performance stays at a peak capacity. Now, the whole point of this experiment was to mitigate the post-exercise brain fog, which I was always experiencing in the past. Again, I wanted to use cerebral lysin, which I mentioned in the Semax video, which I got out to you guys a little bit early because I noticed so much of a positive effect by the mitigation of the post-exercise brain fog and this neurological stress. and oxidative stress potentially. I had all this neurological fatigue that I would normally experience post-workout is now pretty much gone. It literally feels like I've been healing my brain in this 4-week experiment. And that effect seems to linger also, even though it's slowly coming back. Now, this week I'm taking a week off, so I'm not exactly sure how it will feel next week after I go back to the gym and start taking sets to failure again. And I initially thought that I was not going to train this insane by going back on cycle, because I didn't want to have this reduction of cognition and brain fog post-workout. And even sometimes after a quad day, let's say I would train Tuesday evening, the next day I would still be kind of messed up, by taking sets to failure and just training as hard as possible to bring up this weaker body part that I know I have. I know I need to bring up my legs, but it's always a struggle between giving max efforts during quad day and then being a little bit foggy the next day, trying to recover from the insane workout that I had the day prior. And after introducing the Semax and Selank and using that for a couple of weeks in duration, this post-exercise brain fog is getting less and less and less. And I feel that it's slowly returning, but let's see next week if it's getting worse and worse and worse again, forcing me to take a step back in intensity. But the effects that I've gotten from Semax and Selank so far have been so pronounced that it allowed me to train in the morning again and not have this post-exercise brain fog mess up my productivity for the rest of the day. Now, maybe for some of you guys that might be impossible to imagine because you don't bring this intensity to the table. And I saw some of the comments mention that, I train in the morning and I'm very productive for the rest of the day. I'm jealous. I'm happy for you. That was never the case for me. And it forced me to train in the evening, which I found a lot less enjoyable than training in the morning. But now that I've experimented with both compounds, I was able to shift my workouts back to the morning again because it doesn't mess up my productivity the rest of the day. Again, I still notice a little bit of a cognition reduction after quad day. Again, I give my all. I'm trying to bring up this weaker body part. But on any other day of the week, it's like this workout never happened. I have my post-workout meal. I might take a nap, and then I'm good to go for the rest of the day and cognitive until 9 p.m. in the evening. Talking about naps, the quality of my afternoon naps, phenomenal. I'm knocked out for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and drooling a little bit, getting those afternoon nap jolts here and there. And then I wake up feeling super refreshed. Again, it's probably also because I'm training in the morning again, so I would take my naps a little bit earlier. I would take my nap and then continue with my business, and productivity would be unmatched for the rest of the day. Very happy with this experiment. I hope it will last. I doubt it. I think I might need to reintroduce Semax or Selank in the future. But what I do notice, and I'm honestly a little bit sad about, this 4-week experiment with Semax and Selank has reduced my tolerance or increased sensitivity, so to say, to caffeine. So I can barely finish my morning coffee nowadays. Normally I would have the equivalent of 4 espresso shots, kickstart of the day. Very strong cup of coffee, and then I would go into my consultations, which usually start at 8 o'clock in the morning already, right? Due to the time zone differences between Thailand and the rest of the Western world. So I would have a very strong cup of coffee to get the day started. And now I'm drinking less. I can't even finish it. And I don't have my afternoon coffee anymore. So it's a little bit of a shame because I do enjoy my black gold in the morning and in the afternoon. Normally I would have 6 shots or 8 shots per day. I know it's too much. I know it's an issue, but I've been drinking caffeine since I was maybe 15 years old. And I enjoy coffee, man. I really like coffee. And now I can barely finish half a cup in the morning. And then sometimes I have half a cup in the afternoon. So that's the equivalent of 2 to 4 shots of espresso. So I've basically cut my caffeine intake by half, or maybe even 25%, right? Down to 25%. So I feel that either one of these compounds or a combination thereof could potentially be highly beneficial to mitigate some of the adrenal fatigue and post-contest blues, which occurs after a contest prep. So if you're actively competing, and we all know that stimulants and fat-burning aids are heavily used and slightly abused towards the end of contest prep to get absolutely nasty shredded heart and phenomenal contest conditioning. So if you suffer from some adrenal fatigue and post-contest blues, consider a course of 2 to 4 weeks of Semax or Selank, either nasal sprays or through the injectable route, because I feel that it could mitigate that scenario completely. And if you don't do contests, you don't do prep, but you're maybe a little bit addicted to caffeine and other stimulants, I think 2 to 4 weeks on either Semax or Selank could mitigate that issue also, and not have to deal with increasing the dose of caffeine to keep you going. Now, I don't need to notice a difference regarding my modafinil use, so I'm still feeling that 50 milligrams modafinil is as effective and not more effective as it was previously. I don't build up any tolerance to modafinil, but I do notice that with the caffeine, and half a cup of coffee and I'm good to go. And I don't need a second administration of caffeine later in the day to keep me going. Regarding Sexdrive, right? In the previous video discussing Semax, I was speculating if a PT141 would have an overlap with Semax or Selank regarding their activation of the melanocortin receptors. Now, after prolonged exposure to either of these compounds, I would say that, purely from my personal experience, that either Semax or Selank completely mitigates whatever positive effect PT141 has on your libido, because the effects of Semax and Selank are far more pronounced, and they last throughout the day. And not only that, my libido has been heightened. Again, I went on performance-enhancing drugs, so I experimented with PT141. When I was off anabolic androgenic steroids, after going back on cycle, I noticed that my libido improved. Adding in the PT141 occasionally took my libido maybe 5 points higher on a scale from 1 to 100. So let's say I was at 90%. PT141 would take me to 95%. And after this 4-week trial on Semax and Selank, I would say that my libido is now at 110. Reminiscent of the time when I was 16, 17, 18 years old. So that's pretty much 2 decades ago now. I haven't felt this kind of libido in a very, very long time. So I feel that the libido is now completely optimized. And adding in the PT141 on top of the Semax or Selank, either through subcutaneous administrations, and I've even been experimenting with PT141 nasal sprays, doesn't contribute anything. Not while I was running Semax and Selank, and not 2 weeks after running Semax and Selank, because I discontinued it 2 weeks ago. I took PT141 yesterday in the form of a nasal spray, waited, got a little bit of a flushing, which can be expected from PT141. No increase of libido. Certainly not beyond the libido boost that I got from trialing Semax and Selank. Now, I've also noticed that my ejaculation quality has improved substantially. That was after adding in the Semax and Selank, not in the ACG, which I incorporated maybe 8 weeks ago. After trialing the Semax and Selank, it's a little bit embarrassing to talk about this, but the ejaculation quality, insane. Insane, guys. It's crazy. Right? It could be because I'm using the Gorilla Mind load stack, which also increases semen volume quite substantially. But man, it's, blessing in disguise. I did not expect that. I can't find any data on it on Reddit, judging from other people's personal experience with Semax and Selank. But my ejaculation sensations have been 500%. Yeah. Substantial, right? So I recommended this to some of my clients as well, who enjoy a PT141 administration here or there. And some of them say the same thing, and other clients said they didn't notice a difference. So for these beneficial effects, I would rate these compounds 5 stars already. I can't pinpoint if it's the Semax or Selank, whether that's the nasal sprays or the subcutaneous administrations, because I've been trialing both compounds at the same time at various protocols. The libido has gone up. The ejaculation quality has gone up substantially. 5-star compounds just for this reason alone, but it doesn't seem to happen for everybody. And again, it might mitigate some of the effects that people get from PT141. So initially, I would hope that Semax and PT141 would boost each other's effects, but I get way more effects from the Semax or the Selank or a combination of both over PT141. And now I feel that PT141 is kind of obsolete. Right? So something to consider if you're thinking about running either of these compounds in the future. The only real negative effect I've experienced so far is red ears. I get a little bit of a flushing effect in the ears, and that effect seems to linger also. Now, it's currently gone away, but I've felt the need not to record some videos because some days these ears are glowing bright red. A little bit uncomfortable, I would say. And I also did not expect that to happen. There's some limited evidence that either Semax or Selank can increase blood flow and improve the cardiovascular system and improve blood flow to the brain, which is very difficult to measure. Again, overall, I would feel that I've been healing my brain over this 4 weeks that I've been trialing these compounds, right? The neurogenesis, the mitigation of the post-exercise brain fog, and all those beneficial nootropic effects could come from increasing blood flow to the brain. But what I will say is that blood flow to my ears have been increasing to the point that they're a little bit tinted sometimes. Now, I would get similar effects from Cialis, for example, at dosages over 10 milligrams per day. I would never get it from 5 milligrams Cialis per day. I initially thought that it was coming from the telmisartan, which I did increase from 20 milligrams to 40 milligrams telmisartan about 3 weeks ago. But this week I haven't taken any telmisartan because I'm fasting. Right? I'm trying this fast without any ancillaries or fat-burning aids in place. Well, and the red ears remain. And it seems to happen after coffee. And then it slowly goes away during the day. So there's a lot of overlap. Can't find any anecdotal reports about the red ears, but it's something of note. Will they go away? I'm not really sure. It's not the worst thing in the world. I used to get red ears all the time in Holland during the winter when I would go outside and in the cold climate, and then I would come inside and those ears would be, tomato red-like. So that's something that I haven't experienced here in Thailand for years now. And now that's back. So it's not the worst thing in the world, but it is of note that has been going on for the last couple of weeks. So fingers crossed that goes away eventually, because it does make you a little bit self-conscious. I will say that. And some people at the gym have come up to me, "Oh, you're training really hard, but those ears, what's going on there?" So, no, that's the only real side effect that I've experienced so far. There are also some anecdotal reports that people experience hair loss due to the increase of brain-derived neurotropic factor. Again, brain-derived neurotropic factor has been associated with hair loss because it has some effect on the hair follicles. I don't experience hair loss unless I go to the barber. But if that's a concern of you, you might want to look into some of these effects a little bit more scrupulously. Because again, right, if brain-derived neurotropic factor does increase in the brain by the use of Semax or Selank over time, it might result in hair loss if you're prone or susceptible to that. How that compares to hair loss from stress or micronutrient deficiencies or very high levels of androgens or dihydrotestosterone derivatives, I'm not exactly sure. Right? I seem to be immune to hair loss, or at least at this moment in time, I don't get any accelerated hair loss from DHT derivatives or not using a 5-alpha reductase inhibitor when I'm using dosages of testosterone which go far beyond hormone replacement therapy dosages. Not really experiencing any stress in my life. Luckily, this reduces stress to a certain extent also, these compounds, but we'll address that a little bit later in this video. So that's something of concern. The only real side effect that I've experienced are these red ears, which seems to linger slightly, especially early in the morning, and then it slowly goes away during the day. And hair loss, some anecdotal reports that people experience that with prolonged exposure to either Semax or Selank. So let's briefly summarize before we get into the quick facts and the history of Semax and Selank. I've noticed that they act as decongestants, increasing the workout capacity and minimizing the need for additional PiCO2 on top of my other pre-workout formulas. Complete mitigation or severe noticeable reduction of post-exercise brain fog, allowing me to train in the morning at the highest intensity possible, considering the other performance-enhancing drugs and calories that I have in place. I mean, it will never be as high as the workout intensity that I could have during the off-season with a decent amount of pharmacological aids in place for recovery. But for now, I can train as intense and as insane as I want to. I don't have to put a cap on it, which feels very, very liberating because I can stay as productive as possible as I need to be as a self-employed businessman. An overall better libido, sex drive, and ejaculation quality, something I did not expect, but certainly is a warm welcome while using these compounds. Better sleep quality during the afternoon naps. I sleep a lot deeper. So instead of doing an afternoon nap for 30 minutes, now I only need 15 minutes and then go about my business for the rest of the day. Better moods, better ability to learn and research, something we'll touch on a little bit later in this video. More focused during the workouts also, right? I'm a little bit more driven, and my ability to contract and deal with some of the pain that happens somewhere later during the performing of the sets, something I can deal with better also. I mean, these compounds act as an analgesic as well, reducing the perception of pain, so that could have something to do with it also. I feel that I'm a little bit more energetic later in the day, especially notable considering I'm not taking any additional coffee beyond this half cup of coffee that I have in the morning nowadays. So all things considering, besides the red ears, which is, right, not a warm welcome, a little bit of a side effect that I'm experiencing so far. All things considering, my experience with Semax and Selank has been very, very positive. And it leads me to the conclusion that I've been healing my brain from all the crazy, strenuous workouts that I've been doing over the last 20 years. Again, I've been following progressive overload for a very, very long time and taking sets to failure, almost to the point sometimes where I feel a little bit cognitively declined post-workout and I have to sit down for about 30 minutes just to catch myself back up again so I feel comfortable driving with my motorbike back home. That's all gone, man. It's great. It's phenomenal. I did not expect this to happen to such a pronounced effect. But again, it feels like I've been healing my brain from the inside out. And now all the damage that I could potentially have done by training to failure and way beyond and inducing all this neurological stress and fatigue and perhaps oxidative stress in the brain post-workouts, gone, mitigated, disappeared, resolved. Phenomenal. And it seems that most of the beneficial effects and one of the side effects seem to linger for at least 2 weeks after discontinuation. Again, it's been 2 weeks since I stopped the Semax and Selank. So maybe these effects and side effects will last for 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks. I'm not exactly sure. I will let you guys know when I feel the need to reintroduce Semax or Selank again. I'll link that video down below or add it on as a card in the future when I feel the need to add these compounds in back again. But so far, so good. Again, one of the reasons why I feel that I've been healing my brain, because these effects seems to continue even after discontinuation. And now that I look at the timer, I think I've been talking for quite a long time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to split up this video. We're going to discuss the quick facts and the head-on-head comparison tomorrow. So similar to the Superdrol versus Anadrol video, where I split up the practical applications of these oral steroids and the head-on-head comparison. In part 1 and 2, I will do the same for the Semax and Selank, because my personal experience was probably already a 30-minute video, and the beneficial effects that I've noticed and side effects. And then in the part 2, we'll discuss the quick facts, the history, and the head-on-head comparison, so you guys know which compound comes out on top. Stay tuned for that. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you're looking for the most comprehensive guides to bodybuilding pharmacology, you can find the ebooks on my website, vigoroussteve.com/shop. Personalized advice always available through consultations. You can find the rates in the consultations section. Contact me directly if you're interested. Follow me on Instagram at VigorousSteve. Front double bicep for the Vigorous crew. A little bit of Selank and Semax in these cannons, still lingering on this brain-derived neurotropic factor action. It has been going. A little bit of hip thrusts have been occurring recently, also due to their beneficial effects. So all in all, I feel that this physique has been improving due to the incorporation of both of these compounds. Stay tuned for part 2, dropping tomorrow. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.